And there is a sheet on the table. Maybe if one person from each table could be nominated as the spokesperson, and maybe as you come up with some ideas, jot them down. But the first one is, how can educational establishments see the next generation of professionals with a better understanding of BIM as a tool that supports collaborative working? And secondly, should educational establishments be microcosms of the way we desire industry to work in the future, and how could this be achieved, say, within the college? And thirdly, can collaborative working be taught without being practiced? So these are the kind of the challenges that we're going to set out to you there. So if you just want to spend a few minutes thinking about those issues, and we'll say in about 5 minutes, 7 minutes or so, we'll start to get some feedback. Any initial questions to David before we formally start the workshop? Okay, so we'll just take a few minutes to absorb those questions, and we'll start in about at 10 to 10, at 10 to 9 in our presentation. So perhaps if we start with table 3. Okay? Okay, everybody? So we're just going to start the feedback now. Hello, please. Shh. And depending on what table 3 tell us, other tables can then come in after that and add to the comments table 3 have to complement the answers. So, as I say, it is important that we capture this information, because at each of our events, a report has been produced by one of my students, Barry Macaulay, and then that's fed back to the various delegates and associations. And the idea is that at the end of the year, we'll have a composite report. We'll have David Phelps back here in November to wrap things up, and hopefully we'll get the Irish State to look and make a decision in this particular space. So, table 3, if you'd like to maybe, yeah.
Good morning, Roger West from Trinity College. We had a good cross-section of people at our table, and in addressing the first question, we thought that there was, it was a very interesting statement that there was an impression that academics were dysfunctional in relation to how they collaborate with their colleagues in different disciplines. And we tend to stay within our own particular boxes. And one of the things that BIM might do is open up new opportunities for us to deal collaboratively together. However, we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the students still need to learn the basics, and in particular on real projects. The problem is that they might come out with technical skills, but when they get out into the workplace, how do the different disciplines actually work together? And therefore, one shouldn't leave those parts out of the syllabus, because something has to give. But BIM gives us a really good opportunity to, in our problem-based cases that we take with our students in our projects, is to actually bring together groups of students from different disciplines. I'll give you one example. In UCD, there is a combined structural engineering and architectural course, and they have a unique opportunity, because they're naturally together. They have a unique opportunity to actually see how other disciplines work and to build their projects, instead of worrying about designing reinforced concrete or whatever it might happen to be, to actually look at parts of the work that needs to be done from other disciplines. And BIM really opens up the opportunity to do that, because technically things are possible in a collaborative sense. In addressing the second question, the involvement of industry is very important for academics, because we don't have necessarily access on a day-to-day basis to real cases of BIM. And to bring the real cases of BIM back into the colleges and the universities by inviting practitioners in and actually involving them around the table. We invite people in from other disciplines to come and talk to our students so that they have an opportunity to see what it's like using in the real place. So I think we can get some help from industry in doing that. And we shouldn't forget the vendors as well, because like everybody else, we're very strapped for cash, and therefore we do need help in terms of encouraging the students to take on the software by having it available to us. And then finally, the last question, the answer is a very positive yes, sorry, no. You have to practice. This is one thing that you do have to practice in order to teach. There are academics parts to the discipline. There's an academic aspect to the research, of course. But in relation to teaching the students the relationships between the parties, how they collaborate with each other, how they exchange information, it's absolutely essential that it's based in practice. And in order to do that, the academics have to upskill, let's be honest about it, on the one hand, and on the other hand, we do need to have industry more involved with the colleges and the university to give us a little bit of their time to come and let our students benefit from that.
Just before we go on, it was one interesting comment on one of the presenters on Monday. He referred to industry working with academics like dancing with dinosaurs. I thought that was an interesting comment, but hopefully that's not the case here. Any tables would like to add to that?
John Purcell from Farming, but at our table we had no academic, but that didn't mean that we didn't talk about them. The success, we felt like the success of any new initiative like this would be dependent on iteration and on feedback. And on that basis, we recognise that academia is not in a position to achieve this objective unilaterally. And therefore, taking Roger's point, we felt it would be essential really for any progress in terms of the educational establishments seeding a new generation, that they need to work on real projects. And that's very easy to say, but it's something that we haven't really achieved at this point. But it is something we would need to work either through a forum or through some arrangement whereby the education establishments would get to work on real projects, so that both industry could inform academia as to what they're looking for, and also clients would become very aware of what they were trying to achieve. So it's really one of collaboration, I think. Again, I think it's the point we're all making. The second and third question, we felt were a bit interlinked, but certainly we do need some form of interaction between all three elements of the industry, and very definitely no was the answer to the last question.
Simon.
Simon McGuinness from DIT. Just to add to what's been referred to previously, we really thought that in the answer to question one, it was a case of how can it not be integrated? It's so fundamental. But that what academia needs to do is to invite industry leaders in to give parts of courses or as visiting lecturers to show how BIM is being implemented in practice, because that part of the equation is very much missing from the academic implementation. In relation to question two, we found that we were in agreement that it was the absence of a profit motive within the walls of academia mean that there is actually no requirement to collaborate. People outside the walls have to collaborate to make money in this market. But once you leave the money outside the door, there is no reason to collaborate, and that's the fundamental missing link for academia to actually get its act together. So some other form of stick is required to ensure it's implemented. In relation to number three, our experience is that we really need to get our academic programs working to be able to put BIM on the cloud. We have students from all over the country working on postgraduate course using BIM, and the notion that they would all have to get on a train, come to Dublin to actually sit down and practice on BIM is just ridiculous. Or that they do lonely BIM. Lonely BIM is not the answer to anybody's problems, even at an academic level. So the sooner that we get protocols established that allow Revit particularly to get established on the cloud and to operate in a safe way, the better. So that's the only way we can deliver our course content.
Thanks, Simon. I suppose that complements the point I made earlier about the fact that we need the vendors to work with the universities and the colleges to ensure that we have that infrastructure for the students and the software. Any other comments?
I just in response to Simon's comments, I actually think that academics are perfectly placed to be critical and contrarian because they have no profit motive. They can basically do the right thing and try to find a truer course and help steer in industry. There's been quite a debate here about the need for students to be proficient in a particular authoring tool rather than have a more fundamental understanding of how those tools work and how those tools can be best used to help us do what we do, which is still the fundamentals of for me, it's as a structural engineer, it's the fundamental laws of physics, and for other people, similarly for architecture and practice. So these are tools to help us do things better, and I think academics are very well placed to basically help industry steer a truer course.
Anyone else want to add to that? Yeah.
Angus O'Keefe from Ronan O'Donovan Consulting Engineers. Just to add to some of the other comments from the tables, UCD for quite a number of years have been running for final year students a workshop between the architects, the engineers and the students studying structural engineering with architecture. And it provides a facility for students to understand what their colleagues or future colleagues in the other disciplines do and contribute to a project, and they're given a case study and have to come up with the best solution that they can in the time that they're given over about a week. Why are we all looking at introducing or developing the use of BIM in industry in Ireland? To help with collaboration. So therefore it can only help with the collaboration of the students' work as well. One concern would be that wouldn't be enough skills within those students to get good value out of BIM within the short time that they have. They may not have exposure to really learn the software and get value for it within a week. So maybe it's worthwhile looking at some of the universities and ITs coming together and maybe bringing technician students and technologist students and QSs into it, perhaps through the cloud, as was suggested by one of the other tables, and that could be good to bring all the professions in at an early stage through the workshop processes. In terms of question 2, our answer was yes, that it's of course very important and really is answered in our answer to question 1. And for question 3, we said that little value can be garnered from teaching the theory of collaborative working without providing the facility to practice what has been taught. Thank you.
Okay, maybe one final comment before we move on to the next phase. Yes. Yeah.
Just very briefly, I just get the idea of getting industry in to share their experiences with students is a very admirable suggestion, but I think industry, certainly here in Ireland, is so far behind, and there are so few people using BIM in any significant way on projects that it may be hard to find people in industry who have more experience or more knowledge of the BIM subject than the students already have. And I think there's an exercise there that the industry has to be educated first, or alongside educating the students.
Yeah, you could also argue that the academics have to be educated as well, to an extent. Okay?
I'm Cormac Allen from the Department of Architectural Technology and the School of Architecture in DIT, and we implemented or have been implementing BIM through Revit for the last 4 years, and we started with an incremental approach where we introduced it alongside a range of other applications, and we found that the students were being asked to do too many applications and were being distracted from the core technology. We began a 4-year ab initio honours degree programme and decided as part of that to go big bang on BIM, and brought students into first year and are teaching them solely Revit. They no longer do AutoCAD. We're asking questions about that and whether that's the right thing to do in terms of having a range of skills going into practice. But for the moment we have students now who are 2 years into the programme who have only used Revit, and as was referred to there earlier, we're finding that the students are self-learning at a huge level, are passing out our capacity as lecturers to give them the information at the level and rate that they need it, and it's creating all kinds of tensions. And yet when I say to the students, perhaps we should wind back on the BIM in order to match the resources we have. They definitely say that's not the answer. So they're inclined to push ahead themselves while recognising that they're under a lot of pressure in the self-learning. And we are hampered by the recruitment embargo that applies. And one of the things we did was to, recently was to apply for Springboard funding to run a CPD diploma in collaborative BIM, and we were successful in that, and we're hoping to recruit 32 students into a collaborative BIM programme from next January, where they would do a semester of BIM architecture, a semester of BIM engineering, a semester of BIM surveying, and then a collaborative project. And we would use this project as a vehicle to engage in some level of recruitment, to bring in some of the industry skills. And we have a proposal to shadow, for academic staff to shadow the experts that we would bring in. So it is something that we have established as an initiative to connect with industry and enter into that whole collaborative potential on BIM.
Okay, thanks very much, Cormac. And we'd be delighted, as I said, to promote all of the other institutes of technology and university innovations as well as DIT. We're moving on to the second phase of this morning, and it has been discussed and mentioned by many sort of international speakers that BIM is about process and people and a little bit about IT. Technology. I would argue that technology plays a huge part in this, and the tools that we need.